Ninjago's 8th season introduced us to the concept of the royal family, something we haven't really seen too much of since the Oni trilogy, but the thing is that we got more characters than we really did know what to do with, mainly being the royal family, and of course one of them went on to become one of the most iconic characters within the show, but the Master at Arms Hutchins has always been a weird one for me. He was a very short-lived character, but from what we got of him, we actually did get a fair bit. He actually was fairly prevalent to the plot at the beginning of the 8th season, but as you know, he did ultimately meet his demise at the hands of the Sons of Garmadon, or at the very least, it was heavily implied that it was to be the case. But the thing is that we haven't seen him since, and it seems to be that we will never get anything when it does come to the character again. Which does ask the begging question, and is the topic of this video. Was there more to do when it did come to Hutchins? Is he just a wasted character that fell short due to some sort of external circumstance? And I do want to explore that today. Look at what we know when it does come to the character, and determine whether or not he was just simply a character that was meant to serve his purpose, or if he was actually wasted in regard to something else. So let me not waste any more of your time, and let's talk about Hutchins, Ninjago's most wasted character. Now, as I said, he was involved in the 8th season, but for the first few episodes where he was actually around, he was a fairly interesting part when it did come to the season. He is the first of the royal family we're actually introduced to. He is actually the gateway for the ninja to actually know what we're actually dealing with when it does come to the 8th season. This is where we learn about the Oni masks. This is where we learn about the royal family in of itself. It is all delivered to us through Hutchins himself. He is the entire reason the plot itself actually does progress. He is the entirety of the expedition that we do get to learn as well. He recruits the ninja, informs the ninja, does everything to do with the ninja when it does come to the initial days of Season 8. I really like that because it definitely does demonstrate that he is knowledgeable, and he definitely did have some sort of stake when it did come to the royal family. I really like all of what he introduces, and I definitely do think how he portrays it is really interesting as well. He's very straight, he's very to the point, and I really do like that. What made it even better is that we immediately also get to see more of his suspicious side. We actually get to see his side that actually does go to show why he is the Master at Arms. We can see how perceptive he actually is. We see him acknowledge the dynamic that is beginning to form between Lloyd and Harumi. We get to see how he immediately does grow suspicious of Lloyd, or so as we thought. He notes the fact that he doesn't like the fact that they're on first name basis. He doesn't like the fact that Lloyd seemingly is meddling in things that he shouldn't be a part of. He even smiles at Lloyd when he realizes that he can get between them. I find this really interesting, and I like how upfront he is as well, because Hutchins just straight up tells Lloyd, stay away from Harumi, which you could actually see as some way of foreshadowing, who actually knows. But the thing is that he was just such an interesting delivery device when it does come to the royal family. The other big thing about Hutchins that I did like as well is the fact that he was very much an actions before words type of character as well, and we get to see that reflected very subtly in how he acts and also in how he approves of the people around him. One big aspect of the beginning days of Season 8 is the fact that Cole spots what he believes to be Hutchins planting bombs underneath the royal palace, and we get to see all the ninja act accordingly. But in reality, what we find out later is the fact that because Hutchins didn't actually trust the ninja, he actually did hide the real mask because he had no faith in their ability to actually protect the mask. I love that as well. I love the fact that Hutchins was taking precautionary measures just simply because he just simply didn't know who to trust, and I love how he does take those measures, and I like how Ninjago actually handles that. And like I said, it's all about the actions, because as soon as the ninja prove themselves in his eyes, he actually does begin to trust them fully. As soon as the ninja save his life, and also after he saves Lloyd's life himself, he realizes that he can actually have trust in these characters. He likes the fact that he can finally actually believe in them. He provides them the real mask to actually secure. He asks the ninja to actually protect Harumi as well. He actually gives them, by all accounts, his own job within the royal family. I like the fact that we do actually get to see Hutchins begin to trust the ninja, but unfortunately that is completely short-lived after this scene itself. Because after we get to see this amazing scene of Hutchins beginning to trust the ninja, it is literally the last we actually get to see of him, because the next thing we know, we get to see Harumi basically get told by Nia that Hutchins and her parents are no longer with us. They have departed because of the attack from the royal family. And honestly, that is a massive shame, and as far as we know, is the actual ending when it does come to Hutchins. And this is where the beginning of the wasted argument actually does come to be, because Hutchins, a character that was fairly established and actually had a lot going for him within the first 40 minutes of the show, like I said, completely was cut short. There was nothing more to do with him, and that was that. And it feels almost weird, because for those 40 minutes, they did so much, for basically no reason. And that is why the argument has come up of, was there meant to be something more? And that's the thing, it seems to be that there was, because as far as we can tell, there are 3 reasons to suggest there was actually meant to be something else to do with him. So let's actually go through them and ponder the implications. The first reason to suggest that there was meant to be something more to do with Hutchins actually does come from the sets. The thing is that when all of the Ninjago sets were being released, we were also getting product animations to go along with them, to demonstrate basically what you were getting. And when it does come to the Temple of Resurrection, we do actually get to see Hutchins involved in that animation, fighting against the ninja. It seems to be that there was meant to be something more to do with him. It has been later noted that it seems to be just a simple error when it does come to the animation, and the animation team simply weren't in the know of what was actually meant to be doing with the character. But in reality, it could also be seen as an implication as to what was truly actually going on, because we do actually get to see him fighting side by side with Harumi. So it does lead to the first theory on what could have been to do with Hutchins. It could have been that he was originally meant to be a part of the Sons of Garmadon. He was meant to maybe not necessarily be the Quiet One, but it was meant to actually aid in the Quiet One as well. And it seems to be that there were some later things that do imply that that could also have been the case as well, which I will also go over. But the thing is that this animation does seem to imply that Hutchins was meant to be allied with Harumi in some sort of way. But again, you could see that as basically just a simple animation detail. But the thing is that the other things are a lot more concrete than this one. The second reason to suggest that there should have been more to do with Hutchins actually does come from the Hageman brothers themselves. They have actually noted when it does come to Hutchins. They have stated that they contemplated having him return later in Season 8 initially, and the ninja would have concluded that he was actually going to be the Quiet One, and it was basically just meant to be a red herring, and it was going to be revealed that he actually had nothing to do with it. And they then also noted that he would have made a killer ally, and that's the thing as well. It seems to be that they wanted to bring him back, but they just simply didn't. And I find that extremely weird, because it seems to be that they were enticed to actually do that, and I honestly like where they're going with it. The idea of him being an ally to the ninja I think is absolutely fantastic. I love what he could have actually provided for the ninja team. He would have been a really cool contrast, because it doesn't really feel like we have many characters like Hutchins when it does come to the ninja cast. And that's the biggest thing as well, it's the writers at the time themselves actually stating that they did basically want more for the character, and it does lead to the ultimate question of why didn't they? And I do think the obvious answer is just simply down to runtime. Obviously Season 8 is an extremely packed season, and they needed to allow enough time for Harumi, for Garmadon, and even for the ninja just themselves. That's the thing, they just simply didn't really have the time for him, which is just a massive shame. I think that is ultimately just something that's just kind of really a downside when it does come to the 8th season. If we did have a few more episodes, maybe we could have actually have seen him, and honestly that would have been amazing, even if they introduced him later on maybe in Season 9. But the point is, regardless, is that it seems to be that they wanted to have him back, but they just simply didn't have the ability to, which is just a massive shame, but does go to show that it does feel like he was almost wasted because of it. And not wasted in the sense of they brought him back and they made him do nothing, just simply in the way of it seems to be that they wanted to do more, but they just simply just didn't have the ability to. But the last reason that did suggest that he was meant to have something more to do with the show but didn't actually does come from another quote that we do know. We do know that the writers also confirmed that Hutchins and the royal family were going to be explored more when it did come to various media. We were meant to actually have more when it did come to the characters, and honestly I for one was very excited about this when I did hear about it. But the thing is that it doesn't seem to be that this actually actualized. We didn't really get anything to do with the royal family or Hutchins apart from one thing, which was the Garmadon rules book. But even then, we kind of know that it wasn't really all to do with them, but at least we actually got something. And what makes it worse is that if this little something that we got in Garmadon Rules actually did make its way into the show, it would have been absolutely fantastic, because what we actually learned from that book is amazing and would have fit in extremely well into the show in my opinion. If you aren't aware, Garmadon Rules is basically Harumi's diary. We get to learn a lot about her and also just the people around her, and what we do learn is that Hutchins genuinely did seem to care about Harumi. We do actually get to know that he was basically taking care of her in a lot of ways. He was the one who used to sing the Spire in the House lullaby. It's actually where Harumi actually found a lot of things that made its way into her character today. Honestly, it's really cool that we actually got to learn that Hutchins had a genuine side of caring for Harumi, and I just wish the show got to explore that. Of course, though, all of this care wasn't enough because Harumi does note in the diary that even though he did try his best, it basically was fruitless. Harumi notes the fact that she did grow to hate him as well, and honestly, he was a part of her whole plan of revenge, and he actually did meant to have some sort of confrontation between her and him at some point. But of course, it didn't actually come to be. But we do know that he was doing things that actually unintentionally helped her out. For example, we know that he took her to the Library of Domu, and she used it under the excuse of learning about Ninjago's history, when in reality she was just learning about the Oni masks. But the thing is that it's really cool that Hutchins genuinely did try his best to be there for Harumi, even though she basically didn't want it. And the last thing we learned from this book, honestly, is the biggest thing I wish actually did make its way into the show, because the book also does imply that Hutchins knew somewhat of Harumi's plan and was at the very least growing suspicious of her. And obviously, again, nothing that's actually ever came to be and we never got to see a conclusion to it, but I do think that is the biggest point. I really do wish these concepts made its way into the show. It would have been really cool to actually have had Harumi actually had to deal with the fact that Hutchins didn't really know what to do when it did come to her. You could link that all the way back to one of the initial things we talked about, how when Hutchins actually did say to Lloyd, hey, stay away from her, we could have actually have had that weave into this whole thing of suspicion. We could have had Hutchins say it almost as a word of warning because he knew that he was basically on her case. Of course, with the book we know that that probably is the case now, but I really do wish this was just something that was covered in the show. And I do think that is the biggest point. If you do have to go to this external media to learn these amazing, interesting parts, honestly, I feel like they are kind of wasted in a way, because the general audience wouldn't really know about the Garmadon rules book. I think most people are probably only learning about this now, and I do think that is why it's contributing to my point. All of this amazing little Hutchins info and all of this amazing dynamic that he has got with Harumi could have been explored in the show, but ultimately wasn't, and I do think that honestly just adds to my point on an overall. And I do think that is where I want to mark off my overall. I do think when it does come down to it, Hutchins to an extent is a wasted character. Not to the extent of he just didn't do anything like I said, or he basically just had nothing to do within the show, because if anything was the actual opposite. I think he was wasted in the sense of he could have been a fantastic character to have had when it did come to the Oni trilogy. I think it would have been amazing to have actually seen him adapt to the situations, witness the Sons of Garmadon, actually have some sort of moments with Harumi when it does come to her actual reveal. I think all of these little factors would have been fantastic and would have only have added to the Oni trilogy. Honestly, the Oni trilogy is absolutely amazing anyways, but I just think that would have made it just a little bit better, just adding on more perfection to something that is almost perfect in of itself. And I think that is the biggest takeaway for me. As much as I do adore the final product of the Oni trilogy, this definitely could have made things better, and I think Hutchins is a fantastic character that most definitely could have been expanded on. But like I said, unfortunately, he wasn't. But maybe one day we will get more, but I'm not really holding out hope. But what is your opinion when it does come to Hutchins? Do you like what we actually got of him, or did you not? Do you wish he came back, or are you glad with the amount that we actually did have? I would like to know your thoughts, because I really do wish we got more when it did come to him. But like I said, it's just unfortunate that we just didn't seem to get the runtime required when it does come to this character. So it does go down as wasted for me, but honestly, not because he was bad by any sense. But thank you very much for watching the video, and I do hope you enjoyed. And if you did, please consider subscribing. I love discussing Ninjago with more people. And if you do want to support the channel any further, which you do not have to, you could always become a channel member and join the legends that you do see on screen. Each of you are absolutely legends for this, and honestly your support means the world to me. But like I said, that is about it for today, and take care. Okay, bye!